Okay, this is Scooter Tramp Scotty here in Houston, Texas, and today I'm going to talk about intake manifold leaks on Evos, and they're a major going concern because intake manifold leaks can cause excessive heat, which can cause engine failure. I've had it happen twice to me, man. I've had two major engine failures on account of defective intake manifolds that create a lot of heat. One of them was 650 miles below the Mexican border. So now I pay pretty close attention. The first thing I want to talk about with intake manifold leaks, they're a maintenance item. Sooner or later you will have to fix yours if you put any miles on the bike at all, is the symptoms of them. Symptoms are mostly coughing, a lot of coughing back through the carburetor, especially when it's cold. It wants to cough back through the carburetor a lot. Sometimes they will backfire on decel when they're coming up to a stop sign. They'll won't want to warm up. They'll run shitty when they're cold when you first start them up. That's those are symptoms. And especially when you get the coughing though, man, then you want to check it. And the way you check them, most people know, is you take a can of brake cleaner. I use brake cleaner. You can use starting fluid. It's a little flammable. And you get the engine running and you idle it down as low as you can get it because it shows the symptoms more when the idle's slower. And what you're going to do is while it's running, you get in behind here, and the intake manifold looks like this. I'll show it to you in a minute. And you want to get in behind here and you want to spray it. It's going to leak here, here, and possibly here where it hooks to the carburetor. I've got another carburetor here, right? It will leak in those places. And what happens is it lets extra air in there, causes a lean condition, causes problems. So when you spray it, your spray is going to get in there, go into your engine, and you're listening for the engine to change speed. And if it does change speed, then you have an intake manifold leak. One of the things, I already tested this one, and I know it already has that, and I already know the intake manifold's bad. That's why I'm putting another one in. I'm going to get to that. When I'm testing them, you're spraying back here behind the carburetor, and the air filter is like this, so I always take this piece off because I don't want the stuff getting in here into the front by accident and giving me a wrong reading, telling me there's a problem when there ain't one. Everybody knows that. Take the cover off, try to keep what you're spraying away from going in. Okay, so I know that this thing has intake leaks right here behind the carburetor, and most generally what guys do is they replace the rubbers in them, take them off, replace the rubber in them, put them back together. You can never assume that just because you put new rubber in it that it's fixed. You can never assume that when you fix one of these things. Generally it's a good idea to test them afterwards because a lot of times they're still fucking leaking and you didn't get them fixed. Okay, so what happens, and what's happened with this one, is over time the manifold will actually, where the carburetor plugs onto it here, it will wear right here and the carburetor will become loose. And I'll show you, this one here is loose. Okay? And what happens is it just doesn't plug in there well. It moves easy. See why it moves easy? I've had them so bad they're just falling out. Come on, can you get a close-up on this for me, kiddo? Where they're just falling out of there. But this one ain't that bad. But you see the way it doesn't like fit in there real tight? Okay? It comes out of there fairly easy. Okay? Pop it off of there. Alright, now let's look at this one. This is the new one. I went and got a new manifold. I got it used. And when you get a used one, what you want to do, man, is you want to check right around the edge here. Make sure it looks nice. A lot of times these things get dropped and they get dinged. If there's a ding in the bottom of it, it will never seal. It will always leak. It's junk. Throw it away. So you get your new rubber. Mostly people put new rubber on here and they think, oh, it's fixed. And it ain't always. It ain't. Okay, now watch how well this one fits. Okay, this is the one I'm going to put on. Okay, see that sucker don't move at all. It don't move at all. It's on there tight. Okay? So that's what you need. If this thing is worn, and if it's not staying on there well, and if it leaks, it'll never stop until you replace that manifold. They wear out. It takes a while. But get this fucker off. See, that's the way you want it. You want it tight like that on there. Okay, the other thing that happens with them is if you look in here, we have that. You can see the ears on either side here where the manifold attaches to the engine. Okay? Okay. That's a place where it'll be leaking. That's another problem area. And generally what it has the manifold. It's the same manifold with these. And it's got some rubber pieces in here. Well, what happens with these things is these two pieces right here, I don't know what you call them. I always just call them ears. What happens with these two things is they will warp. And once they warp, it don't matter how many times you replace the rubber in it, they will never stop leaking. They will always leak. And I'm going to show you how to tell if they're warped or not. Okay. How can we see this, Tony? Okay. Okay. You can see between, you can see the air between them, but on either side, right here, where the feet hit each other, you cannot see any light between those. If you could see light between on either side where these hit each other, let's look at the left here. If it was like that, where you could see air, see light through it, rather than like this, then they'd be warped. And if they are warped, you will never stop them from leaking. You need to replace these. So those are the two things you need to check beyond beyond just replacing the rubber. Another thing I want to say is there's 3 rubber pieces that go in there. These 3 pieces. This piece here from Harley Davidson costs $18 by itself. Okay, this whole kit with all 3 pieces, aftermarket from an aftermarket shop, costs $7 at an aftermarket shop. So we all know whose ass Harley Davidson can kiss. And there's one more thing, one more place where these things can leak. Can you come in here close? On the top of these, you know, I think that this stuff is the same for carbureted twin cams. So I think it may be the same for those. But anyways, the other place these will leak is there's a vacuum line comes off the top of the carburetor here, and it goes to the VOES switch, which is part of the electronic ignition. It plugs in there. And they always get loose, and they tend to leak. Usually that plugs onto that, and it plugs into something on the other side, and it's easy. All you gotta do is pull it off. And they get loose on the ends. And usually by the time you have intake manifold leaks, those are leaking too. Now that's auto parts store stuff, which costs probably 50 cents for that. So while you're in here, you probably want to get another one of those, because I've had them leak too. Okay? Okay? So anyways, that's about everything there is to know about these intake manifolds. Eventually yours will start to leak. It may just be the rubber, but it may not be. And you need to check these other 2 things. See if the manifold's good, and you got to check these ears when you put it back together and make sure. And it's a good idea to spray it afterwards. And then, if it's still acting funny, you can maybe think about tuning your carburetor. But there's no reason to work on a carburetor as long as the manifold is leaking, because you will always get a false reading. And that's all there is to know about Evo intake manifolds.